Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of Roundabout Sports, provided and presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media, where our passion is our profession. Thank you for joining us this Wednesday evening, December 14th. I am the maestro, Jeremy Carpenter. Alongside me is one of the most disgruntled Blues fans in existence and the most underpaid umpire there is, Hollywood James Knox.
Good evening, Jeremy. How are we doing this evening?
We are doing okay. I would say the weather's nice, but it's Missouri in December, so the weather's kind of crappy. I'm not going to lie.
Same here. Same here. I think to go outside, I'd need a boat.
It is dull and rainy, to say the least. And up until the end of Thursday night last week, that was what the Los Angeles Rams were.
But alas, Baker Mayfield.
But alas, Jared, thank you so much for tuning in. Jared loves the weather out there.
Good.
The weather is good. And yes, alas, Baker Mayfield definitely was the saving grace that the Los Angeles Rams needed in this tumultuous season. But folks, we got so much to talk about this evening. Later on, we're going to have the Urban Cowboy himself, Ricky Rodriguez, who is training his ass off down in Mexico right now. He's fortunate enough, or we are fortunate enough, actually, to have him take time out of his day to join us. And we're excited. There's so much. So, folks, be sure to submit your questions.
I don't know. Maybe we're both fortunate. Maybe he's fortunate to be on our show, too, because he can tell everybody where to stick it.
Yeah, that's
you know, gotta have a platform to his fans.
Oh, exactly. And I know there's going to be fans of the main attraction, Dion, that are going to be on the show, and I'm sure they're not going to be happy with Ricky Rodriguez. But the thing of it is, Ricky's done nothing wrong in this regard. But, try telling those fans that.
Yeah, Dion thinks he can be the main attraction. He obviously has not met Hollywood.
Exactly.
And I'm not even wrestling.
Right.
I'll put you in an arm bar, and then you can fire me like they did Mandy. Anyway.
Yeah, exactly. The problem is it wasn't an armbar, that's for sure.
Well,
there we go. See, we're always happy for
maybe it was a head scissors.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well,
we can only hope. Anyway,
there was a head and a scissors involved. But anyway, yes, there is so much to talk about, folks, before we have our dear friend Ricky on. And if you have any questions or comments, be sure to submit them to us below. And we will do our best to get them on the air. We are always gracious. You can find us on YouTube at Interstate 70 Sports Media. We're on Facebook at Interstate 70 Sports Media and Roundabout Sports. And we are on Twitter as well. We definitely have the social fan base flowing. And that's another thing we're going to get into when we talk with Ricky in a little bit. But first, James, you have a piece of breaking news that in the wave of MLB free agency signings, there's some recent news that happened just before we went on the air. Why is it literally just as we go on the air or just as we're about to go off the air?
Well,
breaking news happens.
The Blues don't play tonight, so they can't score as soon as we go on the air.
They can't allow a goal as soon as we get on the air either.
Hey. We should have won our last two. You get a win and a half. Anyway,
half of them.
So. And I kind of missed on this one because I really thought the Cardinals had a chance to sign Noah Syndergaard. About an hour ago, it was reported, hey, now they beat Nashville 1-0. Jared, come on. The Los Angeles Dodgers have come to terms with Noah Syndergaard on a 1-year, $13 million deal. Syndergaard, kind of in that next level of pitching. It's surprised that the Dodgers haven't done more this year. They've actually subtracted more than they've added. But Syndergaard, a 1-year, $13 million deal. He will pitch for the Dodgers on the West Coast next year. And, of course, that comes off the big news last night of the Giants getting Carlos Correa, which if you go to last week's show, about 45 and a half minutes in, I told you that Correa was going to end up with the Giants. So do you think the Cardinals signed a good Yachty 2.0? I think the Cardinals upgraded their offense tremendously by signing Wilson Contreras. Rather, defensively, he may struggle a little bit, but he's not terrible behind the plate. He's not gonna box pitches like Andrew Kisner does. So Contreras a good deal. I don't think the Cardinals are done. I thought they had a chance to get Syndergaard. Now you think of looking into Jordan Lyles, that level. And don't be surprised if the Cardinals don't bring back Michael Wacha. That's a name for you to kind of keep an eye on. Wacha's figured out how to stay healthy. He's figured out how to pitch. He pitched really well for the Red Sox this past season. And Wacha, being a free agent, obviously he enjoyed his time in St. Louis, and I could see him returning to the Cardinals to help bolster what you've got a pretty good rotation, bolster that rotation. But as we all know, when you think you have enough pitching, you really don't.
You can never really truly have too much pitching, too much good pitching, especially.
Right.
And I think after losing Quintana, the biggest thing the Cardinals do need, and of course with Yachty retiring, what was the big thing they were going to focus on? It was going to be getting a new catcher. Yep. Because like I've said in the past, the Kisner experience is not working, and Cardinal fans are far too impatient to want to see it try and work.
Well, and Herrera's not ready.
Herrera's not ready. He's got talent, but he's too raw. Isn't ready. I think the Cardinals can do just fine without Bader.
Yep, me too, because I think his replacement is Lars Nootbaar, and I'll tell you why. Even if you part ways with, and look, obviously he is a valuable player because the A's wanted him in a deal for Sean Murphy. And even the Blue Jays wanted him if you were going to try to get a Danny Jansen from the A's, or even their other catcher, the young kid. I'm drawing a blank on his name. But the Blue Jays were interested in Nootbaar as well. Nootbaar is a better hitter than Harrison Bader in terms of contact and consistency. And I think defensively, he's just as good in center field. I would look at maybe Dylan Carlson. I know Carlson's only 23 years old, and I know a lot of people will say that the Cardinals shipping him away would be giving up on him too soon. I just think, to get good players, you have to deal good players at times. I mean, we saw that with the Blues, if you go back to 96, and we all hate Mike Keenan. However, he did trade Brendan Shanahan for Chris Pronger, and Pronger, a Hall of Famer, Brendan Shanahan is not. So, sometimes, the idea of to make money, you have to spend money. I think in terms of getting good players, you have to sometimes ship good players away. But I mean, I would be happy with a starting lineup of or a starting outfield rather of Tyler O'Neill, Lars Nootbaar, and then Jordan Walker in right field. Or you go out and sign a Michael Conforto or another utility outfielder. I mean, I wouldn't even be against maybe bringing in a Brandon Drury, who has played in the NL Central, obviously with the Reds before he was shipped out to San Diego. You bring him in, he's serviceable as well, just kind of piecing it together or platooning him and Jordan Walker until Jordan Walker gets his feet wet in the major leagues.
My problem with the thing with dealing Dylan Carlson, or I'm sorry, with bringing back Bader, obviously, like I said, I don't think they need Bader back. But one problem I have is the fact that I personally feel that the Oakland Athletics, soon to be Las Vegas A's, or just any team, any city of the Omaha A's, for crying out loud. Right. It ain't going to be Oakland for very long.
No.
They became too greedy. And I feel they became too greedy. And if you look, because with all the moves they have made, they have one player remaining from their starting lineup.
You're referring to Oakland, right? Okay.
Yeah, referring to Oakland. Oakland has one player remaining from their starting lineup. Everyone else is either left or they've traded him away.
Yeah.
And I don't know. The package for Sean Murphy. Sean Murphy is definitely was one of the hottest names on the market. As you could tell, he went on a 3-team trade involving the Braves and the Brewers. But I don't know. The Cardinals were smart enough to not deal Lars Nootbaar. They see a lot in him. Both, Horror Boys, I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. But what I think is, you look at it, Lars Nootbaar isn't just a talented player. He's a popular player.
Well,
and fans love him.
Right. He brings a lot of energy, the same, very similar to Harrison Bader. The other thing is, to get Bader back, you would have to actually deal with the Yankees because you're not going to get him in free agency, and the Yankees are not going to just give him back to you because remember, Aaron Hicks was their center fielder. There's a reason that the Yankees acquired Harrison Bader, other than the fact that we needed pitching. Aaron Hicks was a player that would rather play golf than play for the Yankees, and we saw that. Aaron Hicks was not interested in doing what he needed to do to improve his defense and be in the starting lineup. Back to the A's. The A's did get greedy, and quite frankly, the haul they got for Sean Murphy wasn't all that impressive. So, big deal. The only player that's worth his weight in gold that you acquired in that deal was Manny Pena, and you got him from the Brewers. The Brewers, on the other hand, boy, getting Wilson Contreras' brother, that's a look. He's very talented. He was an all-star last year for the Braves. So you're looking. It's funny. The A's got greedy and they wanted all these prospects, but looking at it from where these prospects rank in the majors from a prospect standpoint, looking at Baseball America where these guys are ranked, the Brewers are the ones that actually got the better of the deal. Even Sean Murphy going to the Braves, that's fine and dandy. They got him to replace the fact that Dansby Swanson is not going to be a Brave next year. We talked about it last week, the fact that his camp and the Braves are obviously not discussing a new contract. So they got Sean Murphy to replace him there and to be a decent pitch caller for that staff. But in response to Josh's here, Jared says you can't call Wilson Yachty 2.0 unless we go back and call. Well, no, that's not a fair comp because Royce Clayton was not all that great offensively either. Royce Clayton was.
Tony just hated Ozzie Smith.
Well, and you could argue that Tony hated Royce Clayton as well. Calling him Yachty 2.0 is a compliment, basically saying you can definitely match him against. Okay, so understand that Wilson Contreras defensively isn't going to get any better. He's got just as strong of an arm as Yachty had, and may actually be a better, just accuracy better than Yachty, and his pop time is very similar. Offensively, Yadier Molina was never as offensively talented in his career and put up those numbers that Wilson Contreras has put up in his career with the Cubs and now with the Cardinals. So you could argue that in some sense of the game, Wilson Contreras is a better catcher than Yadier Molina. I know, it's taboo to say, but I'm a realist. I couldn't care what the BFIB think or say. I'm going to tell you how it is. Look at the numbers. So, and I will tell you that in terms of last year, and I know they played on, obviously, the Cardinals were a playoff team. The Cubs are, the Cubs. That Wilson Contreras' WAR last year was better than what Yachty's has been in the last 2 or 3 years. Obviously, this year, with the exception of him retiring, it seemed like Yachty was more interested in the fact of being there for when his basketball team in Puerto Rico won a championship instead of being in the lineup for the Cardinals. I'm sorry, like what I have to say or not, it's just the way it is.
Okay, but this is the thing with Yachty. The way you have the lineup with Wilson Contreras and Yadier Molina, Yachty was always a phenomenal defensive catcher. But The first few years of his career, obviously, it was his hitting that wasn't good. He gradually became a better hitter. Wilson Contreras is a phenomenal hitter, and what the Cardinals are hoping for is that gradually his defense will get better.
But other than throwing out runners, why does his defense need to get better? Because let's face it, pitch framing wise, if you're going to an automated strike zone, it's not going to matter if he frames the pitch or not.
We don't know if they're officially going to an automatic strike zone.
They said no.
So much backlash on that. They're going to reverse that.
Except for the fact that the umpire union has said that they're fine with it, and that come out because they're fine with it in the idea that if the umpire union does not say that they're okay with it, I mean, think about where that puts them. Major League Baseball, if they can get replacement umpires, how many guys I know this for a fact, there are guys sitting in the minors right now that would give their left testicle to be in the majors. So who gives a shit if give any umpire, it could be I'm just trying to think here off John Trumpaine, who's one of the best umpires in Major League Baseball. So what? Major League Baseball says, fine, you don't want to agree to it. We lock you guys out. We bring up guys from the minors because, the guy that's sitting down there in AAA Round Rock in Texas drinking a Michelob Ultra after calling a 3-hour game with some stupid ass, automated strike zone because AAA umpires are already used to it.
But I liken the fact of the umpires, if they were locked out, it would be the equivalent of bringing back replacement refs in the NFL. And we all know how much of a debacle that was.
Oh, Green Bay at Seattle.
Green Bay at Seattle. But see, this is the thing. The thing with the umpires being okay with it, what, because they don't want fans to bitch at them about it anymore? They'd rather bitch at robots? That defeats the whole point. And quick side note, I want to put what Josh said up here. Yachty wasn't a great hitter, just a hard out. To an extent, I agree. I actually agree to an extent because, look, there was a lot of times Yachty was a grinder. He was a gritty ball player to where he wouldn't just be like 1, 2, oh, you're out, or just one, pitch ground out. Every time he went up to the plate, up until this past season, because I'm not going to lie, between the injuries, between things, I guess, personally, and I hate being the one to type of make this assumption, something just told me there was that part of Yachty we had seen all the time that wasn't there as much this year.
The great thing about Yachty that he was always good at doing was hitting the ball to the right side to advance a runner, or hitting a sac fly, or as we saw in game 3 against the Braves, back in 2019, the base hit that drives in the game-winning run. So the thing about Yachty is, and I'm going to say this, and this may turn some smiles upside down into frowns.
Oh boy!
The great thing about Yachty, I think, was always Adam Wainwright. And when Wainwright and Yachty were together on the field, it was magic. But there were a lot of times, like Andrew Kisner, like Miles Michaelis pitched better when Kisner was behind the plate. And you can look at the numbers this year, and that's obvious. It just, to me, Yachty was similar to CC Sabathia. Yachty was a better player when he was fat. I don't know what changed. No, I'm serious. Like before he lost, no. Before he lost all this weight, Yachty was better behind the plate. We saw in the last 2 years, and I think all of this started with the pandemic year. Yachty got lazy behind the plate. There were times where there were pass balls that were given as wild pitches to pitchers, but Yachty got lazy. And that's not a part of Yachty or Molina's game that we ever saw. But by God, when Wainwright was on the mound, it was magic. But it's like, oh, well, we're out here trying to set a record. When Yachty was with any other pitcher, the pitcher didn't perform well, and neither did Yachty.
Because there's a bond. It wasn't just a pitcher-catcher relationship between Yachty and Wainwright. It was a brotherhood. It was the bond. These guys were together since 2005, and Yachty was on the big league roster since 2004, and these 329 straight starts. I mean, you're never going to see that in baseball again, and definitely not in our lifetimes because, like I said, we mentioned this in the past. The second longest active streak heading into this offseason was Wilson Contreras and Kyle Hendricks.
Oddly enough, now you're new catcher.
Look at that. That's what I'm saying. Well, that streak just ended. So I take a look at it, and it's like, okay, we can look at Miles Michaelis or Jack Flaherty or Dakota Hudson. God forbid we put Dakota Hudson in the damn rotation again. But you put them going up against, or when Andrew Kisner's behind the plate and behind Yachty or Molina. And I will agree to the sense about the past couple years, the energy level of Yachty or Molina changed. Do I think the leadership was always there? Absolutely. But I definitely could tell there was a lot more frustration. And then I feel like if you're in the position of upper management, All you wanted to make sure was that you could pay him enough to where he doesn't go to another team. Because the biggest crime you could do to this organization was have Yadier Molina in another uniform other than the Cardinals.
So what? You're telling me that it's no different than the Blues and Vladimir Tarasenko. We've seen him. He looks disinterested out there too. So I'm going to compare Yadier Molina to Vladdy.
I don't think you can compare Vladdy to the bond that Yadi has with St. Louis is a lot different than the bond that Tarasenko.
I'm not talking about community-wise. I'm talking about team-wise. And here's another one. I'll give it.
Team, okay, when you think of St. Louis Cardinals, and we're just going to throw a random year out, 2015, because if you threw out 2009, 2008, a lot of people are going to say Pujols. But we're going to say post-2011 World Series. Most people are going to say 9 out of 10, are going to say Yadier Molina. He's the familiar face. Now, you go and look at the St. Louis Blues. I mean, I feel that Les will say Vladimir Tarasenko. The bond that Yadi with the Cardinals, those two go together a lot closer than Tarasenko and the Blues.
I'm talking about energy level and the last couple of years looking disinterested. And here's another one for you. I know that, and I mentioned this whenever he re-signed. If that's here's another one we talk about. If they don't mention Yadi, they mention Adam Wainwright. I wasn't happy that the Cardinals brought Wainwright back for this year. I think he's done. I mean, and how is he going to pitch without Yadi behind the plate? You think? I mean, Wainwright and Wilson Contreras. I mean,
who's going to be a leader? Who's going to truly be that mentor leader on this team if Wainwright's gone? I think that's one. In fact, I feel like that might be. There's two reasons, in my opinion, Wainwright came back this year. Number one, didn't pitch in the playoffs. You ain't ending your career not pitching in the playoffs. Number two, I feel like it's also because there's a lot of young guys in the rotation and in the bullpen that you have a chance to mentor for another year. This is the most important. I think this is one of the most important years of Wainwright's career because it is going to be his last.
But here's the thing. How can you sit there and be a leader and tell pitchers that, oh, well, you need to do this or you need to do this, or, if you can't go out there and lead by example? There's a reason he didn't pitch in the playoffs. He was fucking awful.
Oh, and some of the guys that were in there were much better. The only one I will give an exception to is Helsley because he legit got hurt. But there were guys that were in there during the playoffs that he definitely couldn't have put in.
But Quintana should have gone further in the game because he did pitch better.
I agree with that. They should not have told Quintana like that.
And when Jordan Montgomery came in and pitched, he pitched 3 scoreless. He didn't even give up a hit. So it wasn't so much that Wainwright was better than those guys. Those guys weren't left in there long enough.
And I give you that.
And that all goes
back. I agree on that.
And that all goes back to sabermetrics because God forbid you let a pitcher face a lineup more than 3 times through the damn lineup. We could have very well knocked him out in the first round. But because the nerds want to be like, look, you can't have him pitch any further than this because God forbid he goes out there and throws another shutdown inning. The only reason Wainwright didn't pitch in the playoffs is because he wasn't good enough. So what happens if we get 2 months into the season and Wainwright's 0-5 with an ERA over 4.5, and he's sitting there trying to be a leader, trying to fix other pitchers when he can't fix himself? That's the problem we've had with the Blues. You can't have Ryan O'Reilly be a captain and tell guys that they need to ship up or shape out if he's not producing himself. You're right, Josh. Wainwright should have left with Yadi and Albert. It was perfect. They walked off the field together at the end of the damn game. Bring in somebody else who can be a leader.
The game they lost.
I'm talking about whenever they pulled Wainwright out and they all 3 walked off at the end.
They lost
again. You lost to the Pirates. But here's the thing: you've got Matt Holliday, you've got Nolan Arenado, you've got Goldie. There are your leaders there. You've got guys like Tommy Edman who should be a leader because you got to start building around newer players and younger players because your big guys are getting old. That's why you bring in a Wilson Contreras to be a leader. He was a leader with the Cubs. God forbid he was the catcher for that staff when they won the first World Series in 108 years.
And he was a rookie. And that's
yes.
Technically, and what's funny is technically Wilson Contreras has the most recent World Series title on the Cardinals team.
Right. other than Matt Holliday.
Oh, that's terrible. That is terrible to think about. Oh, God. Well, technically, there's 2 players on that team. the whole thing with Wainwright being out that year. That is true, though. The two most recent guys to actually play in the World Series are the catcher and the bench coach.
Yep.
That's actually kind of funny. I'm not going to lie.
And I think we'll see Matt Holliday be a bigger influence and a bigger leader than what many people are going to think.
I'm going to make one last point on this, and then I'm going to go to Josh's point here. There's one last thing I want to say on this. So back in 1974, I think it was in early July, Nolan Ryan threw 235 pitches in a victory.
Yep.
He pitched in 3 days out on 3 days rest and won that game. And then he pitched another 19 years.
Yep.
I love that because when you brought in the fact about pitching the third time around to the lineup, I don't know why it seems, even if a pitcher, in most cases, say he's starting the top of the seventh and he's on the mound and he only has maybe 80 pitches. And don't get me wrong, if you play baseball, I could only imagine what throwing 80 pitches in a game is like. Point being, the manager said, "Oh no, we can't put you in. We got to take you out." The way I see it, if you're rolling, you're rolling. Seventh inning, if you're still rolling, go get the bullpen ready. But I feel like nowadays, how many games did we see last year? And this is why I'm glad Wainwright came back. How many times last year did guys get taken out in the third and the fourth innings? And I'm not even talking about just Dakota Hudson's atrocities that are even considered starts, which should not be. But look at all the guys. For all of Wainwright's struggles, at the very least, look, Miles Michaelis was the best pitcher on the Cardinals last year. As far as starters go, Helsley, best bullpen guy. We all know that. But when it comes to – and Quintana and Montgomery, lifesavers. We ain't going to the playoffs without them. But you look at Adam Wainwright. What does he do better than most pitchers on the Cardinals the past few years? Eats innings. He eats these innings. He gets you deep into games. And that is a rare breed that we don't see much of anymore in Major League Baseball. The only guys that Ollie Marmol would even let go deep into games would be Wainwright, Michaelis, and occasionally Quintana, And
you'll do that with Flaherty this year only because Flaherty's a free agent. And by God, I will throw him until his freaking arm falls off because he's not going to sign with the Cardinals again anyway. He's going to the West Coast. Josh is right. Not that point, but the next one where he says torque, speed, and pressure pitchers are expected to be filthy at all costs and not depend on D. The problem is if you look at the Cardinals, it's completely opposite. We have a bunch of guys that pitch to contact instead of striking people out. That's why I'm so hell-bent on getting Carlos Rodon because he had the highest strikeout, the highest K rate in the majors last year. Are we going to get him? Probably not. I think that if you're going to do that, you go on Jordan Lyles or Michael Wacha, which are all pitch to contact guys. And I wouldn't touch Jordan Lyles with a 10-foot pole, but, I would bring back Wacha just because I'm familiar with what he does. The problem is this. So you look at it now, and obviously sabermetrics the third time going through. The eye test doesn't exist anymore. For some reason, it's all sabermetrics. I grew up with the idea that you had guys, and before I moved to St. Louis, because that's where I grew up. I wasn't born there. I was a huge Braves fan. It was Maddox, it was Glavine, it was Steve Avery, Kent Merker, John Smoltz, those guys. I expect them to go 7 innings. The 8th inning would be your setup guy. The 9th inning would be your closer.
That's what I'm used to.
That's always how it's been built. And it's no different than, here you go. And the idea of like letting goaltenders in hockey go back to back. Okay, the Blues did that with Sunday and Monday with Colorado and Nashville. He didn't get a whole lot of work on Sunday. It wasn't a whole lot of high stress. I go back with him Monday because he gives me the best chance to win. Major League pitching should be the same way, okay? Not in terms of going back to back, but in the idea of the third time around the lineup or going into the 7th or 8th inning. If you've thrown 80 pitches and they haven't been high stress where you've had runners on base and you've had to slow things down, which that will change too this year with the pitch clock and the fact that you can only throw over to first base X amount of times. Thank God. Now, I do like those rules, although I wish Manfred would leave the game alone because the game is perfect the way it is. There's a reason why it's been played this way, and Abner Doubleday invented this shit over 120 years ago. But you got this old bastard that comes in and has to change everything. Sorry, I'm in rare form.
You know why? Because he is a math. He's basically what the current owners want. He is a math. He's a sabermetric. He's a statistician. He's a lawyer. He's all the things that fans hate and owners love.
It's no different than Roger Goodell in the NFL because he works for the owners and he makes them tons of money. So God forbid we have to keep things the way it is.
The difference is that, and this is a quick side note on Roger Goodell, it's because Roger Goodell is a puppet to the owners.
Yeah.
Manfred's the same. He's not as much a puppet to the owners as much as he is just not knowing how to truly enjoy the game of baseball.
Don't know. Seems to me like he's got 32 people with their hands up his ass and in his pockets.
Well, nevertheless, and this is my last point because I just got the text, believe it or not, and Ricky's taking himself a break from his training. So, but I want to bring this last point in. So we're talking about a lot of things happening in this upcoming season in baseball. Now you're talking about you prefer, James, more of the strikeout pitchers. Is that what I'm kind of getting? The guys as opposed to pitch to contact?
Man, I like nastiness. I don't care if it's a strikeout guy or not. I just want somebody who can get the job done.
Okay, because
I'm really easy to please.
Right. Well, and easy to piss off too. But
apparently,
I know that feeling. This is my problem, or this is the thing. Like I have, to me, whether you're a strikeout pitcher, because that was something the Cardinals did not get a lot of last year, and unless you're hitting.
What the hell, Josh?
Yeah, Josh says no, you're not. See, there you go. My point was right. But nevertheless, you take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals. What is something? So pitching to contact means obviously the ball will be put in play more. It'll be more accurate and it'll be less pressure on the arm. Honestly, and see, look at this. See, and my dad grew up with Bob Gibson. He's used to seeing pitchers getting 9 innings. Bob Gibson has more complete games than he does wins in his career.
Edwin Jackson threw a no-hitter and threw 147 pitches, and we all sit there and frown upon it. You know, he went out there and got the job done. Did he walk 7 guys? Yes. Did he give up a run? No.
But the point
You're right, Josh. You can't.
Yeah, right. You can't have fielders and pitch to contact, but at the same time, you should not have to be afraid of having a pitch to contact pitcher when literally your entire infield is Gold Glove winners.
True.
So who gives a crap if he throws a pitch that maybe he throws a slider to try to get the ball in play? It doesn't matter because if your Gold Glove third baseman throws it to your Gold Glove first baseman, what's the point? That's where they get put in responsibility. Yes, I'm not thinking that you should always have that, but at the same time,
But you need more swinging.
Right, I get that, but you don't need.
No, Jeremy. But here's what I'm going to say. But you need more swing and miss in the playoffs. During the regular season, I'm fine with pitch to contact, but you need the swing and miss in the playoffs because the guys you're facing in the playoffs are the guys that can turn around, a nasty slider or even turn around a 99-mile-per-hour fastball. I mean, we saw Bryce Harper do that against the Cardinals in the second game of that. You need the swing and miss in the playoffs. That's why guys like Bob Gibson and Nolan Ryan and Randy Johnson and those guys were so successful. Because Johnson can get you, 3-2, and he's got a runner on second and third with 1 out, and you need to strand that runner at third. He's got that slider he can put on the outside corner, or or you can go up and in with a fastball and get a swing and miss. You need that in the playoffs when the pressure is so tight. 162 games, I have no problem with the pitch to contact guys. But even when the Cardinals, back in 2011 when Tony La Russa would let his starters go 3-4 innings in the playoffs and he's going to the bullpen, who is he going to get? Guys like Lance Lynn, who all he threw were 4 different variations of a fastball, but he could blow it by you. Or guys like, he had the starter like Chris Carpenter, who didn't necessarily throw extremely hard, but his curveball and his slider could make you look like you were swinging out of your ass. I mean, those are the guys you need. Just like, why is Justin Verlander, why did he help Houston win a World Series this year? Because he could blow it by you. I mean, he had Kate Upton's strength. I mean, and he was coming off of Tommy John. I mean, there's a time and place for guys like that, and generally it's in the playoffs. But you need those guys to get you there. Carlos Rodon didn't help the Giants get to the playoffs this past year, but it wasn't because of him. I mean, their offense didn't help them. If you put Carlos Rodon on the Cardinals, that series against the Phillies looks completely different. The Cardinals didn't have a pitcher in their rotation where the Phillies looked up and said, "Oh shit, we got to face him today." They didn't have that.
Because Marmol didn't give them much confidence. Because Marmol didn't make them seem intimidating enough. He didn't say, "Oh, we're going to put this guy out there." I'm going to say this one last thing. I do want to say, all I can say is the GOAT pitch to contact pitcher right here. Come on, you got to show love to Big Sexy. Come on.
Look, I like Bartolo Colon.
You know what? I'm not going to lie. For all the drama when it comes to the Cardinals, if they went out and signed 48-year-old Bartolo Colon right now, who is still pitching, mind you.
He might be a better DH option, too.
I was about to say.
He can hit.
It's not even that he's a free agent. He is an active pitcher. I say by all means, just wing it. And I know people disagree, but you know what?
Colon would try to eat those wings.
No, see, folks, this is James at the beginning of the season. This is James at the end of the season.
It's true. Very true.
Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning in to Roundabout Sports so far. With that, like I said, we and yeah, go more like lick the cow in the league. Oh, Josh, God love you. Folks, it is my honor to have our guest on this evening. It is both James and mine's pleasure. He had a rough match. Let me tell you a little quick thing about the Urban Cowboy, Ricky Rodriguez. So much recently at Dynamo Pro, he faced Jack Gamble in a match, and I'm not going to lie, Ricky had that match won. But Jack, being the dastardly bastard that he is, cheated his way to win. And honestly, ever since things boiled over ever since I should say the main attraction, Dion, bailed on both Chris Exodus and Ricky Rodriguez a couple months ago, things just haven't been the same. So Ricky and I were talking, and he said, you know what? He has to get the best training possible. So he's down in Mexico right now, really trying to grind it out. You know, some of the best wrestlers of all time, some of the best luchadors are down in Mexico right now. So Ricky's getting his training on. He's going to be back next month. And he is the 2022 Riot on the River champion with Dynamo Pro Wrestling. Wherever you go in the Midwest, his fan base will follow. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and James to welcome to Roundabout Sports the Urban Cowboy himself, Ricky Rodriguez.
Hello. Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure, Ricky. How are you, man?
Oh, I'm great. I am in Mexico right now, so I could not be better.
Oh, I don't blame you there, man. So, how have you been feeling lately? First thing I got to ask. I know it's been a rough couple months, you know, some tough things inside the ring, so.
You know, Jack Gamble is a great wrestler, so it says a lot about his character that he had to hit me with brass knuckles to win. So
I definitely
I certainly wasn't too happy about it. I don't think a lot of my fans were happy about it either.
No, and I was in definite I don't know if I'd even say in definite shock, but I will say, you know, and it seemed like you got that match in hand. Now, is that type of thing where somebody will come up with brass knuckles? First off, you know, obviously it's a fear tactic because, you know, a desperate man will do a desperate move.
Absolutely.
But do you usually feel like you're able to be aware for that type of move?
Listen, here's the thing. Like I said, I'm not surprised. You know, he did what he had to do, and it just happened to be at my expense. But just like I said, when that little piece of shit Dion, if I can call him that here.
You can call him that, whatever you want. No, go for it. Open forum, my friend.
Just like I said, when he walked out on our tag team, I'm not worried about any of that right now. I am only focused on one thing, and that is becoming the next Dynamo Pro champion.
You know, it's interesting. I was going to bring up the Dynamo Pro Heavyweight Championship. So we saw something that caught everybody by surprise just a few weeks ago when the Snitch, who has been around Dynamo Pro a long time, been in this business a long time, who's felt that he's been screwed out of the Dynamo Pro heavyweight title. And he actually defeated Benjamin Trust, the president of the United States of Slam, Ben Trust, for the Dynamo Pro Heavyweight Championship. And he's been reveling in it ever since. He was on the Wrestle Talk podcast last night and boasting about it and proud of every moment of it. And, you know, how do you prepare for a guy like the Snitch?
Well, coming down here to Mexico to train is certainly a start. I'll say this about Snitch. I certainly don't agree with any of his tactics, but something that he and I definitely have in common is that, especially in this past year, we have both been scratching and clawing our way to the top. So not to sound boastful, but if anybody can take out Snitch, I think I have a pretty good shot.
Well, I could totally see that. And, you know, both you and the Snitch competed in the 2022 Ride on the River tournament, in which you were, congratulations, by the way, on being the victor of that. That was really fun to see. What does that mean to you, knowing some of the most prestigious wrestlers in the Midwest have held that honor of being the Ride on the River champion?
I mean, I felt great. That was the greatest night of my life. Ever since the Ride on the River tournament came into existence, that's all I was focused on. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I got a little sidetracked from time to time, but now I can proudly say that I am the 2022 Ride on the River champion, which is yet another thing me and Snitch have in common is that we're both Ride on the River tournament winners. I mean, you got to credit where credit is due, and even though I believe you called him dastardly.
Yes, the dastardly bastard. You know, speaking of guys that are out, and Jared, once again, thank you so much for being a loyal listener. Ricky is the only guy and only cowboy that I could predict and witness take the title.
Well, I'm definitely the only cowboy. You're right about that, because I'm pretty sure I'm the only cowboy in Dynamo Pro. But thank you, Jared. That means a lot.
You know, I wanted to ask you something, and then I want to pass it over to James. So I see you at Dynamo Pro. I've known you for many years, but whether it's at a Dynamo Pro show or MMWA or anywhere else, we see you out there, and you just have a huge following. I mean, I know it's something that you've worked so hard to earn.
Thank you.
You know, you've really worked your ass off to earn this, and you know it's paid off tremendously. But like, where does that come from? Where does that big Urban Cowboy following come from? Because the pop that you get when you come out is unlike any other. Look who we got here before.
I was waiting for that.
There he is. There's the champion himself, live on the show, folks.
I mean, you call a duck, he's dastardly. You said it, man. You put the nail on the head. But to answer your question, thank you, by the way. That means a lot that I have all these fans all over the place. But I think a big part of the reason for that is everywhere I go, I can relate to people. I'm very down to earth, and I think they can see that. And just like with Dusty Rhodes, I hate to compare myself to him, but here we are. Just like with Dusty Rhodes, I don't look like your typical wrestler. I certainly don't look like your typical champion. But I think that so many fans see them in me. They know that I'm fighting for them. And so over time, they realized that more and more. And it really, really boosted my fan base.
Well, James, I'm going to pass it over to you. I love hearing that you've gotten this devoted following. You know, especially the future generations of not just oh God, here we go. Ricky has fans because he's true to himself and true to his nature.
Well, thank you, Snitch. I guess
there we go.
All the time. I appreciate
right. He does have his moments. We will definitely give Snitch. Unlike Chris Rodell, the voice of Dynamo Pro, I will give the Snitch credit. He does have his moments, but we saw how he won the title. And Eddie, thank you so much for tuning in to Roundabout Sports. Pleasure having you on. And
oh.
There it is.
Right.
There it is.
So
James,
this is kind of where I was going with this. Is like, I mean, what do you say to those people like the Snitch or his fans or Dion and his foolish like sheep ass followers that say that no matter what you do in Mexico to train, like it's not going to matter when you get back? I mean, what do you say to people like that?
Well, first off, I don't think Dion has fans, so we can just throw that out right now.
I think he's so dastardly his own mother doesn't like him.
She stays away from him. She feeds him with.
I kind of thought that's where you were going with that, Jeremy.
So, I mean, you put in all the work you can, you do everything you can. A cheater's a cheater. People cheat because it works. So, of course, they're going to cheat. I just know that that's not who I am and that's not what I'm going to do. And also, I really like selling T-shirts, and my fans buy my T-shirts. And if I cheat, then they're not going to be my fans anymore. So,
I mean, I do understand that one.
Well, that's kind of where I was going to go, Jeremy. I was like, it's you can compare it, I guess, to any athlete who's trying to come back, after they have a setback, and you got to, I guess, worry more about what you do instead of what everybody else does.
I have worked since last October harder than I have ever worked in the 5 years that I have been in this business. And that is certainly not going to slow down anytime soon. So all these people, they can call me foolish or whatever, but I am going to stay true to myself. I'm going to stay true to my fans. And I mean, it's gotten me this far, so I know it's going to take me even further.
Eddie over there is talking about how cheating is a low class resource of winning. Like we said, it's a desperate tactic. And Ricky, it looks like you got another gentleman who wants a shirt.
Well, Jared, you got to come to the next Dynamo show. I will have plenty available.
There's always plenty Ricky shirts available, which is saying something considering how many you sell. So it just means the inventory is big enough. You got to prepare ahead, I tell you.
I am so blessed that all of this has worked out and people actually like what I'm doing and they're buying all this merch. It's been wonderful.
So, Jeremy, I got a text from Jags History who said that Ricky reminds him of Adam Page from AEW.
Oh, gosh. I love that.
I guess you can take that as a compliment, right?
I mean, as long as you like Hangman Adam Page, it's definitely a compliment.
Adam Page is fine. And I've gotten that comparison a lot. I've also gotten compared to Razor Ramon a lot, which I really love.
See, but that's the one I was thinking of.
I'll say this about Adam Page. Cowboys don't drive Teslas.
No, they do not. And quick side note, Eddie, thank you so much for tuning in. As far as Cardinal news goes,
you might want to go back and watch
you can go back and check out the first half. Obviously, the show is always on the air on YouTube and Facebook. And then also, before the end of the show, we might have breaking news coverage if something pops out. But yeah, you just missed it by that much.
Well, and we have we'll have an announcement too later on in the show that will regard where you can get more Cardinals news coming up very soon. So
absolutely, Ricky, I have to ask you this. What you said you've been in this business 5 years, so you're still fairly young and new to the business. Who has been a huge mentor for you on this journey?
There's been 3. Number 1, without a doubt, is Sadie Blaze, and I think a lot of people in the Midwest can say that because he's been around so long. But yeah, he took me under his wing pretty much from day one, and he has helped me more than anybody else in this business. And then he introduced me to mentor number 2, who I was lucky enough to get to spend time with before he passed, which was Tracy Smothers. That man was a genius.
Wow. Okay.
He was also one of the most insane men I have ever met in my life, but in a good way. I have Tracy stories for days. I don't know if I should necessarily share any of them here, but Tracy Smothers was a trip, man. He knew everything there was to know about wrestling, I think. And then number 3, also trained me through Dynamo, was Ricky Cruz, another one who's been around forever.
And Eddie brings up, I think first he says that Ricky Cruz. No, but it's interesting you bring up Ricky Cruz.
But thank you.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you actually, it was a triple for the Ride on the River Championship this year. It was a triple threat match, and it was you versus Big Vic of the Agents of Chaos, and of course you have Ricky Cruz. And what's it like for you knowing that you're in the ring and in one spot you're going against one of your mentors?
Well,
he's not going to hold back, mind you.
He's also been doing some pretty dastardly stuff lately, so I had no problem trying to kick his ass. And I say trying because I was in there with not only 2 of the meanest people Dynamo had to offer, but also 2 of the biggest. I mean, those guys are just giant men. And the fact that I had to find out about this triple threat match that day, because, who knows what's going to happen in a tournament, on top of the fact that it's so hard to prepare for a triple threat match in general, and the fact that that was my first time ever actually being in the ring with Ricky Cruz.
Really?
It was unreal. I was so nervous, but cooler heads prevailed.
You had mentioned to James just a little bit ago about, grinding back from October to this point this year. What was the big setback that you feel like you had been dealt? Did you suffer?
The first setback was complacency. I had a little bit of momentum going very early on in my career, and I think I was given a lot of opportunities that I wasn't necessarily ready for at the time. And because of that, I got very, very complacent. And any wrestler who's gone through this can tell you that complacency equals laziness. And so, brother, I thought I had it made. I was taking everything on easy. And my work was clearly reflecting that, just like is the case with any job. This is no exception. And then when the pandemic hit, it changed everything because all of it got taken away.
Right.
And not just for me, for most of us. And so not having wrestling in my life for that long really changed the perspective. I sat on my couch like every night, studied wrestling. I made my roommate watch wrestling, whether he wanted to or not, which I think I turned him into a wrestling fan. I think.
See, there you go. That's all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah. And then once we were able to get back in the ring, I just trained harder than I ever did before. And now I'm hungrier than I ever have been before.
Eddie has a question for you. He wants to know, basically, what are your thoughts on the Brotherhood? Because his favorite is the Brotherhood. And we know who's one of the guys that leads that thing. And that, of course, is your mentor, Ricky Cruz.
The Brotherhood, I've been in the ring with all of these guys. The Brotherhood is definitely some of the meanest guys in the Midwest. They've got their own little following, and that's great for them. But if you cheat to win, I got to handle business. I've taken out 2 of the 3 of those guys. One of them on multiple occasions. Cayman. But no, they're a good team. They definitely know how to get a reaction from the crowd, and at the end of the day, that's really what it's all about.
Yep, and James, our dear favorite snitch, came back, and one thing we know that Sadie couldn't teach you or anyone is how to avoid getting beat senseless by me.
It's funny that he says that because
because didn't the last
we all
show
know from the tournament, I actually beat him in the second round. So
Yeah, that too. I mean, I was about to say there's another thing right there. And Eddie says they don't cheat no more. They are babies. Which either makes them happy or disappoints them. Probably disappoints. Oh, we got a good Jags history. Thank you so much. I know you always tune in around the 8 o'clock time, so thank you for joining us, my friend. He's got a question for you, Ricky. He says, "Who inspired you to become a pro wrestler?"
oh gosh, that's such a loaded question. The Undertaker was the first wrestler I remember seeing. I was like 4 years old, and he put somebody in a body bag, and I freaked out. And then I was hooked ever since. And then, of course, as any 4-year-old does, I was a huge fan of Hulk Hogan. But as far as who inspired me to be a wrestler, I think it was probably guys like Roddy Piper, Shawn Michaels, Randy Savage, definitely, Razor Ramon. With the exception of Razor, I think the thing that all those guys have in common is that they're kind of smaller guys who are really good at talking. So I always try to emulate everything that those guys kind of do. And then, of course, Stan Hansen. I mean, nobody's better than Stan Hansen, man. He punched a man's eyeball out. Good God.
Sounds like something Dynamite Kid would do at a bar.
Right.
just on a normal day. Punching his eyeball out. What's interesting because you got the Razor Ramon shades, if you will, and you got the Stan Hansen hat, so it is almost the full package.
I also have all of the jewelry.
Jewelry too.
Razor Ramon, I think, and I think a lot of people will agree with this, was one of the coolest dudes to ever come out of the 90s. He was cool. He spent no time being a heel. They turned him baby right away, and rightfully so.
Yeah. And Jared has a question for you. He says, if Ricky could choose a dream match, mainstream, local, before or current, who would it be and what kind of match? Ooh, and see, now we're getting into specifics here. So,
All right.
So basically, big time opponent, local. What you got?
I think I'm gonna say Cody Rhodes. I have been a Cody Rhodes fan since his debut. I've always loved everything he's done, even the Stardust stuff. I know a lot of people don't like that, but he knocked that gimmick out of the park.
Yeah.
So definitely Cody Rhodes, and I think the match type, it would have to be something crazy. I think I'd want to do like a TLC match with Cody Rhodes.
Wow.
I don't know why, but I've got a soft spot for hardcore wrestling.
I don't
do it a lot because that hurts, you know.
Right. It's ironic. You ain't gonna find anything soft in hardcore wrestling.
Right.
You know, James, I want to pass it back to you, because you know everybody knows that you are the go-to guy when it comes for like baseball and football and sports and whatnot, but you got yourself a big wrestling fandom as well. So, you know, I could imagine how you reacted if you saw The Undertaker bringing someone out in a body bag.
Man, look, I'll go back to Royal Rumble 96, where him and Yokozuna had everybody in the backstage, put him in the casket, and then he levitates up and So look,
favorite moment ever.
Growing up, we had a dark room in our basement, this house we had bought, and you know, I was so afraid to go anywhere near there because I thought the Undertaker was in the dark room. Mind you, I was 15 years old when that happened, and I was scared. So yeah, I mean, I think anything the Undertaker did and the body bag thing was so cool. And you know, I'll tell you, we go back to that age of wrestling. I think one of my favorites, other than Shawn Michaels, huge Shawn Michaels fan, I was a big Papa Shango fan. I loved the voodoo and the skull and all that other stuff. And like, I'll never forget, like, what was it? Him and Ultimate Warrior, and he made the Ultimate Warrior puke everywhere and everything else. Remember that? So yeah,
everywhere.
Yeah. So So I mean, yeah, the whole Undertaker thing, him and Razor Ramon was kind of I want to say he was kind of the first, like, I guess you want to call it entertainer to kind of step outside the box. Yeah, he had a character, but it was kind of a character that WWF at the time had never done before.
Well, I remember he was one of the first guys, from my memory. I'm sure there were vignettes before, but he was one of the first guys I remember that had the vignettes where he was like at the market knocking all the vegetables and stuff over.
And throwing toothpicks in guys' faces and everything. Right.
Yeah, he was great. He was great.
But I think you mentioned Stan Hansen, and you go back a little bit, like, further with guys like that, and Barry Windham was another one I remember that was just kind of one of those guys. He was just big, he was strong. But when you go back and you talk about smaller wrestlers, I mean, same, I'm guessing, high flying, your style being similar to maybe that of like a beautiful Bobby Eaton.
Yeah, Bobby Eaton was really cool. Honestly, though, what I really like from like that time period is if you go and watch all of the American guys that went over to Japan at that time, it was so hard hitting and just like unlike anything else they were doing in the States. It's so entertaining to watch.
And I think it would be similar too when you had guys come over like a Jushin Thunder Liger. I mean, that was kind of like the style that we saw. Like, he was extremely athletic, but he didn't. He was, everything he did had some kind of like major impact. And I'm not talking about like storyline wise. I'm talking about when he body slammed you or he hit you with a move, like you could tell that the guy was feeling it.
And that's the great thing I think about WCW in the early 90s too, was that they brought over guys like Liger or Mysterio from Mexico. Yep. And it was the first time that a kid like me was seeing any of that stuff.
Right. Well, and
then they brought in Vince Russo and David Arquette.
Well, yeah, right.
That's fine. Nothing in wrestling is permanent. Was it a good idea? No, but it happened. Yeah. It's fine.
But then you look at the other things they did. But look at the other things they did with guys like Dennis Rodman and Karl Malone. That brought it more mainstream. Yeah, sure, the whole thing with Arquette was a mistake, but like at the time with Rodman and Malone, and then
same thing with LT in WWF.
Right.
Main eventing with Bam Bam Bigelow.
His big WrestleMania match with Bam Bam Bigelow, or bringing in, like when they brought in Mike Tyson in the whole DX Tyson, you Tyson had
great, man. When Stone Cold punched Mike Tyson and money started flying out of his pockets.
Yeah. I mean, you weren't going to get that anywhere else. And at that point in time, we had gone from like the, eat your vitamins, say your prayers, Hulk Hogan, where it was like you had Hulk Hogan and you had the Ultimate Warrior and you had Macho Man, and then you go into the mid 90s and you look at it, and wrestling had kind of shrank a little bit back to like it was taboo to like be mainstream and to enjoy it. And then you get back with guys like Shawn Michaels and then DX, and on the other side with like DDP and guys like that. You had, even though the whole idea with like Kevin Sullivan and his group of guys, like it still made you talk about it. I remember I was in high school at the time, and our favorite thing to do would get together 7:00 Tuesday morning. Did you watch Raw last night? Did you watch Nitro? This guy, and before that, like I was afraid to come up like, man, I'm a huge wrestling fan. I mean, I was 13, 14 years old, man. How was I supposed to get a girlfriend if she knew I liked wrestling? And then you get in later 90s. It's
I've
like,
asked myself that for years.
Well, Jeremy, you're still asking yourself that. But you get into the late 90s and it became almost taboo not to like it.
Yeah, I feel like that was an era where if you were a wrestling fan, you were in heaven. And if you weren't a wrestling fan, you still found something that you were liking. Right. When I was in like a senior in high school, that era was well over with. But if I was wearing like a DX t-shirt, even the kids who didn't like wrestling anymore would be like, oh man, that shirt's so cool. And, at that, I think everybody connected with that era. Well, which is obviously why they were so successful.
Well, I mean, How many times did we see guys like would score touchdowns in the NFL and they would crotch chop? I mean,
Yeah.
no, you know,
Crotch
I can't tell you how many kids I saw in high school get suspended because they would do that, or kind of being like, that's taboo. What was the when you put that out there in the chat? Was it? I'm actually not so sure, Eddie. Was that to his question about what position he was the catcher?
No, not that. He said he had a question. What does it mean he got points from here? That was the one. No, I know. Some guy named Randy Poffo played catcher. No.
Yeah. And his brother, the genius.
The brother, the genius. There you go.
There's you another one. There's you another character. Remember, what was it? Sandow in WWE. All that was a modern version of the genius. And let me read you a poem. I mean, he was great.
Yeah,
he held the microphone like this. It was
like a glass of wine.
Yes,
a glass of fine wine.
And
then the Rock comes out there and he's like, "What do you get when you get a material at its lowermost aggregate? You get rock bottom." Exactly.
Jeremy, did you have that memorized?
Yes.
He was waiting for any time he could use that. You do realize that.
It's funny because my memory can be so selective. I may struggle remembering things from 2 days ago, and yet I'll remember that from I think it was 2012. I'm guessing. That seems like me with 80s thing.
It's like me with 80s music lyrics.
Yeah. So quick thing before we went on the air, we've done this logo thing in the past where there's a possessed Detroit Lions or Tigers logo, and I'm gonna just show it quickly. And James always loves this, and he was like, "Do you remember the show Heathcliff?" I said, "Yeah." So what do I do? There's Heathcliff. So this is your brain. This is your brain. This is your brain after dealing with the snitch.
That's what happens when somebody pisses me off 20 minutes before the show, right? Going into that guy. All right. So anyway, oh goodness.
Boy.
But
no, I wanted to ask. This is actually a question for both of you guys. So reports are out that Vince McMahon wants to find a way back into WWE.
I saw this.
And, he felt like he had gotten really bad advice in regards to resigning and just how the fallout from everything has happened. How the whole hush money scandal and everything with the affairs. I mean, what do you guys think of this whole it's become a debacle. Ricky, I'll start with you on this.
I mean, everybody you hear from inside the company says how much better it is now. But I've also heard that with Vince being majority shareholder, he can take back over anytime he wants to, regardless of how people feel. I don't know if that's true or not, because I'm certainly not a business expert or anything. But if he does try to come back in, there's obviously going to be a whole lot of pushback from probably not just from the board, but from everyone.
And James?
I wish he would go away. And I think it's real funny. Yeah, I was going to say Jack's history beat me to it. I think it's real funny that he says that on the same day that two more legal cases that, by the way, are more serious than the hush money ordeal. These come up and they're more serious. Vince McMahon needs to just go away. I mean, yes, he is a majority shareholder, and Ricky, to your point, at any given time, all he has to say is, "I want my position back," and legally he has every right to it. Now, the best thing he could do, go away, be a grandfather, go show up on TMZ with whatever woman you're dating this week, right. And just go away. And, WWE has been leaps and bounds better since he stepped away. I mean, we're seeing the fact that they have already got pay-per-views and storylines built up to WrestleMania of next year. The first thing that leaked was obviously Intercontinental Champion Gunther taking on Brock Lesnar. Oh my God. Let me inject it into my veins now. But the problem is like with Vince is they would get to Monday Night Raw and 30 minutes before the show goes live, he rewrites the whole show. And that's no way to run a business. I mean, Jeremy and I do this show every week, and we may not have a necessarily have a pinned show plan, but we have an idea of what we're going to talk about. That would be us going on at 6:45 when we get in here and kind of discuss things that have happened during the day and saying, let's change the whole show. It would look bad. It would sound bad, and we would sound like
it would definitely sound bad.
Well, I was going to say it would seem even more that we don't know what the hell we're talking about, more so than what we already do. So I mean,
a little less clueless than we are.
Right. The point being is Vince just needs to step away. Be happy with the success that WWE is having, but Vince, like most narcissists, and I'm not referring to Lex Luger, Vince, like most people who are full of themselves, can't handle his company or his entity having success if he's not the front and center face for it.
Yeah, and I think
kind of like the snitch. He's got to always be in something.
Well, yeah. I was going to say, and you look at Vince, look, I will always maintain the belief that he is one of the most, if not the most important figure in the history of professional wrestling and definitely in sports entertainment. That said, it's always, especially when something like this comes up, you got to step away.
So is Hulk Hogan. It doesn't mean that he still needs to be wrestling.
Right.
The difference is Hulk Hogan's not the one that's trying to have 15 retirement matches. That's Ric Flair, who once again is trying to have another retirement match.
And he has to have every commercial in the world for Car Shield with Pat Maroon and Ryan O'Reilly. He's on TV.
Commercials. He's fine in commercials.
Yeah, I was gonna say put him in commercials.
It's bad, man.
It's when he was out in the ring at 73, 74 wrestling. Look, say what you want, but Mae Young wrestling at 90 years old was a lot better.
Yeah, but she took a better bump than Flair does.
That's what I'm saying. It was better. She took a better bump.
She had no problem with Bubba Ray Dudley putting her through a table.
Oh, God. I mean, she gave birth to a hand. How do you think that must have felt?
Well, I'm still trying to figure that out, considering the hand was white, Mark Henry was black.
Remember, okay.
Anyway.
Quick side note. Remember on Raw 1000 when the hand showed up all grown up? One of the greatest one of the greatest payoffs in wrestling right there. I don't care.
But didn't you realize that, look, man, the hand is a movie star. It's in every Addams Family movie.
Yeah,
if you came out of Mae Young, you'd move like that too.
Yeah. And then here comes Jax for saying Ric Flair said he wanted to be in the Royal Rumble. And well, hopefully it's.
You should put Flair number 1 and put McMahon number 2.
Yep.
Hopefully, and then Brock Lesnar number 3, and then let it all play itself out.
Welcome to 2023 Royal Rumble.
You know what? If you want the ultimate hatred, like the most heat in one wrestling ring at the same time, based on 2022 standards, you'll put Vince McMahon in the ring, number 1. You'll put Ric Flair in number 2 because wrestling fans and purists are sick of him tarnishing his legacy. And then at number 3, you put Mayor Glenn Jacobs in.
And number 4 is Eric Bischoff. Number 5 is Vince Russo. And then
this has to be Cornette.
What I was going to say was James E. Cornette. Oh my God, tennis racket and all. And number 7 is Mr. Fuji.
Yeah, that sounds like the worst. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. We've seen some bad Royal Rumbles.
Number 7, Tony Schiavone. Number 8, Jim Ross.
Or had Vince 1, then Cody at 2. So okay, I wanted to ask Ricky this question, and we talked earlier in the show. And first off, thanks to everybody for tuning in, and I give you even more props if you stuck around. Dealing with our insanity, but I'm the maestro, Jeremy Karp, and that's Hollywood James Knox, or what's left of him, and below us is the Urban Cowboy, Ricky Rodriguez. And to try to put it in a little bit, what?
I got another role. No.
This is your last one. What?
Bobby Lashley versus Donald Trump in a hair match. Remember when we had Vince and the only thing is you can't have Umaga because Umaga's dead. I guess maybe Solo Sikoa can be.
I'm done. I can't with you.
What? I'm sorry. We'll bring back Jeff Jarrett.
When does Talking Dynasty start back up? No. Anyway, so Ricky, I want to ask you. We talk about your fan following and how much you mean and how much you give back to the community. Well, one thing you are a big representation of when you go to the ring, and you advocate for it, and your ring gear is trans rights.
Yes.
And I want to ask you obviously it's a moral thing because obviously it's unfortunate because all men and women are created equal. Everybody should be treated equal, but not everybody is. What made you want to choose that as something you wanted to represent towards everybody with, your ring gear and everything out to the ring?
All right, I'll try to talk about this without getting too emotional.
Okay.
So, I was fortunate enough to meet a woman years ago, and we dated for a while. And she was trans, so she was born in the wrong body. She transitioned at 26. And you've probably met her. She's been at shows. She goes to a lot of shows. And obviously, you're dating someone, you're spending a lot of time with them. And there would be situations where she would be like scared to do the simplest things like walk into a Walmart because she didn't want people to react to her presence or something like that. And I mean, that's heartbreaking to watch for anybody, but especially to have to watch someone you love go through that.
Right.
So yeah, that's basically what started it. And what it really comes down to is the fact that human rights are human rights. It doesn't matter what kind of human you are, Also, it's very hard for trans people to get healthcare because a lot of doctors won't help trans people get the medicine that they need and things. And it's just a very messed up situation, and it's incredibly unfair. And I figured with wrestling, if I was going to have this platform, I might as well use it to do some good. So that's how that all started.
Right on.
And I love that. I really admire it.
Thank you.
Have you had to endure, and everybody, like I said, everybody's created equal and everybody should be treated equal, no matter who you are, no matter how you identify. What was the initial reaction when you started openly advocating for trans rights on your way to the ring?
In wrestling, the reaction was immediately positive. I had people coming up to me, telling me how grateful they were to see that. I had parents of children telling me I was making them more comfortable to be at wrestling shows. And that is probably the best thing that I have ever done in my career. It means so much to me. But yeah, it was immediately positive. And so when I saw that, I was like, man, I'm really on to something here. I need to keep doing this. I need to transition this over into my regular life. And so, yeah, that's a very big issue in my life now.
Well, I normally don't speak for others, but I'm sure I can speak for James on this one when we really both admire that. And I think one thing I enjoy the most out of you doing that is that it is a positive response that you get. I think the most important one was the one you had mentioned where the parents, said how grateful they were and, makes them more comfortable and whatnot. And I think the biggest thing for somebody in that position, for them to know that it's okay, and in the world we live in where there's so much hatred and so much judgment for so many reasons that they don't need to be judged and hated.
Yeah, absolutely. There are plenty of reasons to hate somebody. I don't think that's one of them.
Right. I was gonna say that's definitely far from it. So no, that was something I know that you've been doing that quite a long time, and I figured it's something you're gonna continue to do for the foreseeable future until transgender people get the rights, and especially the healthcare.
Yeah.
The healthcare part is heartbreaking, especially. Yeah. So no, I definitely admire that. To transfer, you're welcome, man. And to kind of shift gears back towards in-ring career, where did you get your first big break? Like I said, it's been about half a decade now in your career. Where was it?
God, that makes me sound so old.
Look, this makes you feel old. I've been doing journalism for a decade now, and yet nice. I'm not even 30 yet. So it makes me feel crazy. And James is over there thinking we're all babies compared to him.
Yep, pretty much. That's why I didn't say anything. Look, man, I got my journalism degree in 2004, so yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
I got my learner's permit in 2004.
I'm gonna shut up now.
I was in 4th grade in 2004.
Jeremy, you keep talking.
I
buddy.
had to.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
All right. Wise. Very wise.
Yeah.
So my first big break probably was when I was just about under a year into the business. I was doing a lot of traveling, and I ended up getting booked at Combat Zone Wrestling, CZW, which it's still a pretty prominent company, but for a while, I mean, they were getting names like Mia Yim and Daniel Bryan and people like that. They were very much on the same level as Ring of Honor for a while. And they had professional television cameras, and everything was I had never seen anything like it up to that point. So I would consider that my first real big break. It was also the longest car ride I've ever been on in my life. There were like 5 of us, and it was 17 and a half hours or something like that.
Jeez. Oh my gosh.
Those road trips, though, man, that's what makes wrestling, one of the things that makes wrestling so special. And it is a great way to get to know somebody.
Well, that was interesting because, WWE does their series on like the wrestlers on the road and everything. And, when wrestlers get interviewed, a lot of the best stories are ones that happen on the road.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's how you form these bonds because, you're talking sometimes 10+ hour drives. You're going cross country stuff. I mean, it's not just going from, say, Missouri to Iowa. You're going either really far south, north, any direction. But you eventually found your way to Dynamo Pro Wrestling. How's it been? Now, we both work with Dynamo Pro, so we both know Jim and Crystal very well.
Yes.
2 of the most passionate people in the wrestling industry. And before we get to Eddie's question, I wanted to ask you, what's it like for you to be able to have this type of opportunity to work with Jim and Crystal, who've made a footing in the St. Louis / Eastern Illinois or Western Illinois area for so long?
It has been a long time. I think Dynamo's been around for something like 15 years at this point.
Yeah, they recently celebrated their 15th anniversary with back in July, I believe.
And I think passionate is an understatement. I think that the 2 of them, with the help of Sadie, they love wrestling so much. It is wild. I don't think I've seen another promotion where the owners love it just as much as the wrestlers. But I mean, it's been incredible working for Dynamo. That company is so different from everything else that goes on in the Midwest. And in the Midwest, there is so much good wrestling. I mean, we are kind of in one of the meccas, ever since wrestling at the Chase. The Midwest has been the place to be, and that certainly hasn't changed anymore. And so I'm honestly just grateful to get to be a part of it, really.
Well, that's all. I love to hear it. I'll tell you that much. It's a pleasure for me to be a part of Dynamo Pro. And Luke Roberts has been to me what Sadie Blaze has basically been to you. And they've both been staples of Dynamo for so long. Eddie. Oh yeah, and Eddie sends in another question here. Who is your favorite St. Louis wrestler? So we'll go based on ones that are just frequently in the St. Louis circuit that you'll find. And I know there's a lot to choose from because you've either teamed with a lot or faced a lot.
My favorite St. Louis wrestler. That's loaded, man. My favorite St. Louis wrestler. All right, I'll give you two.
Yeah,
I'll give you one that's been around for quite a while. And that's Warhorse. We used to travel together a lot. His character work is so incredible. And that guy knows how to have a good match with everybody, which is so rare for somebody to be able to do. So he's definitely one of my top guys. And as far as newer people go, he's actually been on your show before, Chris Exodus.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not going to call him new to the business per se, but in like Dynamo and stuff, sort of around the area, he's very new. And I have so much fun wrestling that guy. He's so good. I cannot wait to see what he does next. He's awesome.
It's interesting you bring that up because I've said to myself, if I ever were to train and have even just one wrestling match, Chris Exodus would probably be that guy I would love to have that match against. His energy, he's somebody both inside the ring and out of it that you just love to know. Unfortunately,
we're talking Dynamo specific. Another of my favorites is Surge, Adrian Surge. Man, I was my first singles match against him. I was able to walk away with the win, but he did not make it easy. But every time I'm in the ring with that guy, it is again so much fun, and we put on great matches every time.
So I was about to say, and I know this is where it gets a little touchy. We were talking about you and Chris Exodus. Well, it was a couple shows ago, and I remember telling James about this for the first time, and he's like, "Oh, you can't, you got to be kidding me." So Dion, he started up as a security at Dynamo, trained his ass off, became one of the brightest young guns in Dynamo. I'm not going to deny that. And you started to mentor him. You started to show him a lot of the, no pun intended here, but you showed him the ropes. And, it was a 6-man tag match. And all of a sudden, you were trying to tag in Dion, and Dion just backed away, dropped down, laughed it off. And now he's boasting himself as the main attraction who didn't need anybody, who was being held back by you. How does that make you feel, considering you were the one that extended your hand to him first?
Well, I'll just say this. We could have been at the top of the tag team division very easily. Because you're right, he was one of the breakout stars in Dynamo lately. But like I said before, if that kid wants to throw away all the opportunities that he is given, then he can go right ahead, because all he did was free up time for me to go after the Dynamo Pro Championship. So thank you.
Are you worried at all that if you go after the titles, Dion might interfere?
I'm just going to say, if that does become the case, I'll worry about it then. I don't. Okay. I got too many things on my plate to be worrying about.
I was about to say, because, for a guy that definitely who abandoned you, he sure has a nasty habit of not keeping your name out of his mouth.
I know.
And I'm sure you've noticed that he's the one that's been saying your name a lot. Posters with you, but with a red X next to him. So yeah, and
jealousy, I think, is what it is. It's jealousy. He sees my fan base, he gets jealous. Jealousy gets to us all. I get jealous sometimes. I just don't make such a big deal about it.
Absolutely. So before I pass off to James, I got one main final question. I mean, I know your ultimate goal is to get that Dynamo Pro Heavyweight Championship off Snitch's shoulders. I mean, anybody's shoulders, yes, but come on. I feel like you would think it's that much sweeter getting it off the Snitch's shoulders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He has messed with my family a bunch, pretty much at every Dynamo show. So it's a little bit personal too.
Right. So have you ever thought about beyond what would happen? I mean, what do you, best way to put it, I guess, you're Dynamite or Dynamo Pro Heavyweight Champion. Well, what would be next for Ricky Rodriguez?
I'm going to hold on to that belt as long as possible. And, I think with this, the case with a lot of people, obviously my main goal is to make it to TV. But man, I am having so much success and so much fun in my career right now. If I don't ever make it to TV, then so be it. But I'm not going to worry about that right now because I have one of the best careers around, I'm blessed every day.
James, look who joined back.
Yeah, I see that. That's all right. I think we all very well know that there's a certain word that rhymes with snitch that Ricky's going to make him. So, use your imagination, if you will. Or if you don't want to, that's fine too. But you kind of go ahead, Ricky.
Snitch, just like is the case with your wife, you disappoint my family every day.
Oh God, I might have to.
Oh damn! Oh damn!
Oh
well, all right then.
Well, there is a reason I do not say this show's for kids when I put it on YouTube.
And rich is not the word I was thinking of, and So anyway,
oh my God.
Merry blanking Christmas to you too.
Before I go back, James, there is one thing we have to get out there. Where does the Urban Cowboy come from? Where did we can't not have this question on air. Where did the Urban Cowboy become? Where did it begin and how is it what it is now?
I always wanted to be in the rodeo. But that takes a lot of time that I did not have and a whole lot of training because that is super duper dangerous.
Oh, ain't that the truth?
Then I ended up just doing regular cowboying for about 6 years. I worked with horses. I taught kids how to ride horses. I would teach them how to take care of them and everything. We would go off into the woods as a big group for a week, and we would teach them how to live off the land. I did that for about 6 years. And then since I'm from St. Louis, it's a very urban area.
Oh, that's right.
But I didn't feel like hanging up the cowboy hat. And then I watched a movie from the 70s with John Travolta.
That's where I was going, where they're at Gillies. Yeah, bingo. When he shut up, Jeremy. I actually like that movie.
Look, it's fun. Look, I'm an old soul when it comes to movies. I love saying these things to my friends that are around my age and they don't know what the hell I'm talking about. So I love
Urban Cowboy, Jeremy, was a very good movie. If you've never seen it, go watch it because it will explain his persona a little bit more.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. I will say I've seen a lot of Travolta and thankfully not as much recent Travolta because he's kind of gone off the deep end. But I will definitely have to check out that. We'll have to check out Urban Cowboy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that. James, do you have any final thoughts for our?
You kind of asked the last question I was going to ask, and that was about where he would go going forward. So you kind of asked that. You kind of asked the question I was going to ask. So I'm good.
Oh,
I'm good.
All right. Well, and Eddie says it's a very good movie. It's way old. No, Gone with the Wind is way old.
Yeah, Urban Cowboy is only from like 77. It's not.
That's what I'm saying. I don't consider that old. Like,
yes, frankly, Eddie, we don't give a damn.
Yeah, exactly. And you're lucky that's the word we used.
Yeah. This is going way off the rails.
I know, and that's why we love it. Well, for the snitch, it's justified, though. Eddie, we love you. It's just the snitch we have problems with, and they're justified. So, Ricky, I want to thank you so much for joining us this evening. It has been nothing but an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, man.
And
thank you guys so
Eddie
much
says
for
he's older than that. Oh, you're welcome. But before we let you go, definitely, first off, I know you're not going to be back until January, so I know you won't be there for Dynamo Pro this Saturday at Concordia.
I know, but everybody still needs to go. They're going to have Santa. You can watch somebody beat up Snitch, hopefully. So,
yeah, I was going to say Snitch will, I believe, defend the Dynamo Pro heavyweight title, and if not, he's still going to get his ass kicked by somebody. But I know you're going to see some of the best stars in not just the St. Louis area, but in the Midwest out there, the historic Concordia Terminus Gymnasium. And Eddie's really trying to hype up his age because he says that he knows Santa. So, but Ricky, also, why not go ahead, grow your fan following, plug your socials so they can embrace the Urban Cowboy just like a lot of us have.
Yeah, my Instagram is urban.cowboy.rr. And then the Facebook is just Ricky Rodriguez. I'll be the one dressed in all pink.
I love to see it. So, all right, Ricky, I know you got a lot of training to get back to, and thank you so much for taking time out.
I wish it wasn't dark outside right now because I would take my computer out here and show you guys. There is literally like a whole fiesta going on outside my window.
Is there? Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, it's dark outside here too, but there ain't no fiesta. It's just rain. There ain't no fiesta. 85 degrees. I was gonna say, I mean, we got a Hanukkah menorah lit over here, but other than that, nope, no fiesta outside. But Ricky, I look forward to talking to you soon, brother. You stay well. God love you. We love you. So you take care, okay?
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
You as well. Thanks for joining us.
Urban Cowboy, Ricky Rodriguez, here on Roundabout Sports. I tell you, James, what an amazing guy. That
was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. We talk about how great he is as a wrestler, but it's him as a person that truly makes him shine.
Right.
So Eddie has wondered if there's any late-breaking Cardinals news. Do you have anything for us yet, James?
No, the stove burners are off right now.
Stove burners are off right now.
Yeah.
Well, what if by tomorrow something were to happen? How would the fans, especially of Interstate 70 Sports Media, find out? Because I believe you have some breaking news. And with that, I'm going to give you the floor as we not only do a cheap promotional plug because we love to do that shit sometimes, but it is also that time, folks, for Knox's Corner here on Roundabout Sports presented by Interstate 70 Sports Media.
Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central Time, we will actually we'll relaunch the Strike Zone with yours truly, James Knox. And tomorrow night, we've got a guest. See, which way do I want to go here? We'll move that way. The Strike Zone tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central Time. I've already got the guest lined up, one of my very good friends. And Tom Brady sympathizer, if you will. Jordan Winders will join me tomorrow night. We'll talk Tom Brady and some professional bull riding as Jordan works for PBR. So we'll have him on the show tomorrow night, possibly having Jags history as well. Could join me tomorrow night as well. He's a little under the weather right now, aren't we all? So tomorrow night at 7 p.m. here on Interstate 70 Sports Media, we will relaunch the Strike Zone. And we will obviously Thursday night looks like it's going to be the night for the show. Going forward, the time may change depending on future endeavors. Now time for Knox's Corner. And this is going to be a little reflective tonight. And generally, I don't want to bring down the mood of the show, but I feel like it's worth talking about. If you're a sports fan, and I'm sure most of you who are watching are, 61-year-old Mike Leach, the head coach of the Mississippi State Bulldog football program, passed away yesterday morning in the hospital in Jackson, Mississippi. Mike Leach had a heart attack at his home on Sunday and unfortunately was not found for 15 to 20 minutes. And he succumbed to the injuries his heart faced after that heart attack. And you go back, Paul Silas passed away earlier this year, and there's Mike Leach right there. He was 61 years old. Mike Leach was a wonderful man, a great head coach, and actually pretty hilarious. He loved his Pirates. And yes, Eddie, it was extremely sad, and I think it caught us all off guard and unexpected. Paul Silas passed away earlier this week. Should be a Hall of Fame basketball coach, Paul. His son coaches in the NBA now. We look at all that. And then, of course, in the world of pop culture earlier today, we find out that Twitch, who was Ellen DeGeneres' sidekick on her show, committed suicide. And I want to remind you all how fragile life is. And again, as we come up on the holiday season, I think we all realize that the holidays are not always pleasant for everybody. And they're coming not even a full 2 years out of the pandemic, we all realize what kind of a toll and what kind of a sense that took on all of us in the realm of mental health. Jeremy has struggled with mental health issues, as I have too, especially in the last 2 months, losing some very people who were close to me, very close to me in the last 2 months. We've all struggled. We've all been there. I'll sit here and tell you and be very candid with you that I myself at times have contemplated suicide. And yes, Eddie, he was known for his air raid offense. And there are a lot of coaches that still use that offense in professional football and college football. But we've all been there mental health wise. We've all struggled, and again, with the holidays, not everybody's a fan of the holidays. I, until recently, was not a fan of the holidays as well. But what I want to remind you all is that life is extremely fragile, and unexpectedly things could turn, and the next thing you know, that person that's close to you is no longer in your life, and unfortunately no longer on this world, or on this earth rather. And I say that in terms of, like, if you don't know, Jeremy was in a car accident this past weekend, and I can't imagine, as close as Jeremy and I have become over the last 5 years, that what I would do or how I would feel, or you would feel that loss if something would have happened to him. Thankfully, it didn't. I also hearken back to a personal experience of mine. 18 years ago to this very day, I had my last cancer surgery in Indianapolis that ultimately saved my life. And, I've dealt with health issues lately. And you just kind of wonder, like, where, like, what would you do? How would you feel if that person wasn't there? In today's society, we're so quick to judge people, or we're quick to cast those into different categories. And I beg you all. Yeah, there's pictures of Jeremy's car accident this past weekend. How he walked away from that unscathed, other than some bruised pinkies and bruised knuckles, is amazing to me. So in today's society, we're so quick to cast judgment, or be snarky or be mean. You just remember this time of year that, with the holidays and everything else, and even not even the holidays, it should be this way every day of the year. And I'm not always in a great mood, and sometimes I'm snarky and sharp to people, but ultimately keep in mind how quick life can change and how fragile life is. And that, you know, always to tell that person you love them, or come up with a silly little mnemonic or something that you can share with that person, or always hug your kids, or just know that, you know, you may have a bad day today, but there could be somebody out there that you could change the day for, and to always be there. I've always made the comment that, you know, in this world, we all feel like we are one person, but to one person, you could literally be their world. So I just beg you all, with the issues lately and us losing those pop culture icons. And I think it's happened more as it seems like we're seeing suicide rates go up, that, you know, a lot of things have happened in society, whether it's, you know, just inflation causing people financial issues and not being able to deal with them and being able to support their family. They just feel like they don't have anything left, and they ultimately give up on life, which, you know, everybody has their own way of dealing with things, I suppose. That just to be kind, you know, because you never know what that other person might be going through. And that on this Wednesday, December 14th, is Knox's Corner.
Very powerful stuff indeed, James. And, you know, it's absolutely right. This time of year is great for many people. It's not so much for others. I think back to what Jerry Lawler once said after Owen Hart died, you know, his sudden death. He told the viewers at home to never leave home without telling the people you love what you think of them.
Right.
And you had mentioned about the passing of Twitch, who sadly he took his own life, and then the sudden deaths of Paul Silas and Mike Leach. And yes, you and I have both been through a lot. And yeah, I couldn't imagine. I was beyond shaken up. This, like I said, is the first day since the accident I've had my fingers not wrapped up. But it's just amazing. I even walked out of it. I was at the tow yard today and looking through, and I walked past these other cars, and I saw cars that were so bad, you know, that I found out the drivers of those cars died. Yeah. And I'm saying to myself, holy shit, I'm just thankful, you know, that wasn't me and that it wasn't the other people involved. But it's just it's powerful.
It really is crazy when you really cut down to it, you know, down to the bare bones of it all. Is like when you send me those pictures, I'm like, and how the hell did you walk away from that? I mean, you know,
we had the Hanukkah party for our family literally 2.5 hours later, because I, you know, right after the accident, you know, obviously I'm checking on the other people involved, but after some time settled, I called grandma. I was like, yeah, the parties, I don't want it to get canceled, but I'm just like, and I'm over here and I can't feel, I had trouble feeling my left hand. The whole right side at the front was just jammed in, and you couldn't even open up the glove compartment. You couldn't open up that door. Like, I mean,
I think it's crazy, and I hate the fact that you wrecked your car, especially after just getting it back not too long ago.
Yeah.
But you know, when you look at it, that kind of stuff can be replaced, and it just, and again, not to bring down the mood of the show, because we've had a wonderful show tonight, and we certainly need to promo our show for next week, with that being the season finale coming up. But it's just, there's so much stuff in life. And look, I can sit here and tell you this, and it's harder for you and I when we're going through. So I think this is true for everybody, that when they're going through whatever, you know, obstacle in life you're going through, that we always think it's the end of the world because it's happening to us. Like, we don't see the forest because of the trees. But when you look at it, ultimately, there are so many more things, or how much worse it could have been. And I use your accident as an example, because I mean, look, I mean, like, I've been, you know, I think it's kind of like peanut butter and jelly here. Like, you can't just have, I mean, you could have a peanut butter sandwich by itself, but it's not any good without the jelly. And, you know, I think that, you know, sitting here, and I've thought about this a lot since you sent me those pictures, like, damn, it's like I could do this show without Jeremy, but the show is so much more it's better with you there. And just again, it's crazy. Like I talked to you and I kind of shared the story with my brother over Facebook Messenger, and it's like, losing him and in a car accident, and just thinking about, like, I was afraid to drive for a while because it's like you're so much more just kind of alert and kind of just scared of those around you. And I could only imagine for you being in an accident like that and being able to walk away, but being back in the car, you're just like, you're kind of more alert and your head's on a swivel because you just coming out of that. It's like, you're a little paranoid almost, to a sense.
Yeah, and I'm very grateful to still be alive, grateful to be here for my family, my friends, to see the Cleveland Browns lose for another week. Because why not, right? Because shit, I know they're not going to help me.
Hashtag first world problems, right?
Hashtag first world problems. There's people starving. There's people that can't get proper health care. All we care about is our football teams winning. I mean, no, but there's just so much going on. And before we close, folks, we have to say next week is the season 2 finale of Roundabout Sports. Thankfully, it is not the series finale because guess what? We'll be back in 2023. And
that's right.
Man, it is already only a couple weeks away, James.
I know it. I know it.
And
the first episode of season 3 will be Wednesday, January 11th. So put that on your calendar, jabronis.
Put that on your calendar. Wednesday, January 11th, folks. Not January 10th, not January 12th.
No, it'll be 1-1-1.
It'll be 1-1-1-2023. Sounds like a lock combination to like a safe or something.
Binary code.
Like Morse code type thing.
Yeah.
No.
Oh goodness!
This is why I love doing the show with you for so many reasons.
Yes.
You make me happy, make me laugh, and you annoy the living hell out of me sometimes, but it works. Which is why I always have. I'm always thankful to have your Achilles heel waiting in the queue. Nevertheless, yes, next week we're going to have some special guests. Jags History, who is a loyal listener of the show since the beginning, is going to be on. We're also going to have longtime professional wrestling referee Christopher Miles, and we have other surprises planned, some trivia. I mean, we're going to try to go all out, balls out for the season 2 finale, folks. So it's something.
Florida.
And James will be on location in Florida. I will be on location at home. Shit happens. I mean, where am I gonna go anyway afterwards? So like after work, I'm tired. So anyway, yeah, he'll be at nevertheless, and James, I will love you forever if you put on Mickey Mouse ears before the show.
I can do that.
Oh my God, please do. You're dressed up as a cowardly lion for Halloween.
Actually, I'm going to go to Animal Kingdom. So hell, I may come back with cat's ears. May come back with some cat's ears on. Maybe a Santa hat. Hell, I don't know.
Oh God, this is going to be interesting. Okay, well, nevertheless,
go with me.
Nevertheless, folks, yes, it is an episode you do not want to miss. Although we don't want you to miss any of the episodes, but that will be that'll be next Wednesday night, 7:00 Central. If you're James, that's 8:00 Eastern.
Yeah. Be
sure not to miss it. You're gonna love it. I know we love doing this every week. Oh, what you got, James?
But if you do miss it, you can find us on Spotify. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Anchor. You can find us. Hey, we're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Hey, just find us. Just look for us.
Look for Roundabout Sports. Look for Interstate 70 Sports Media. We're everywhere. I mean, we are well past 5,000 followers on Facebook, but we're not done yet, not by a long shot. We have a revamped website, so definitely
check out the website
at interstate70sports.media. Also, believe it or not, let me double check this though. The St. Louis Ambush next game will be I I hate to say it like this, but it's actually going to be against the Baltimore Blast at, let's see, I'm trying to see what time, at 4:05 p.m. at the Family Arena, which means you can go watch a St. Louis ambush at the Family Arena in St. Charles, Missouri, and then come home, watch Roundabout Sports. Hell, you can stay at the arena and watch it on your phone. We are there.
That's right. Oh, and the St. Louis Battlehawks will open up their 2023 season on Saturday, February 18th.
There you go. So, folks, but we'll definitely be talking about a lot of that next year. But yes, until then, season finale next week. And before we go, as always, folks, we have the NAMI hotline at 1-800-950-NAMI. That is 1-800-950-NAMI. And of course, you know, James emphasized it a lot during Knox's Corner, but we got the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, which is dial 988. You know, it used to be a longer number. They shortened it. Now you just got to dial 988. It is available 24/7, 365, 366 on leap years. Understand you are never alone in this world. We all have a path to follow, but it shouldn't be a path that's traveled alone. You know, there's always, and most importantly, on top of that, folks, you could be the voice for somebody you could be the ears for somebody that needs to talk to somebody. You could be the one they can talk to. So always check on your loved ones. Always be grateful for who you have in your life. We're grateful for all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening on Roundabout Sports. Our special thanks to our guest, the Urban Cowboy, Ricky Rodriguez. And with that, he's Hollywood James Knox. I'm the Maestro Jeremy Karp. We'll catch you next week on the season finale. And remember, life is a book full of empty pages just waiting to be written in. Make your lives worth reading. Good night, everyone.